Within the last week, China has been ramping up its military exercises around Taiwan, simulating a blockade and launching mock missile strikes that caused some minor incidents in the Taiwan Strait, resulting in a few civilian vessels being damaged and at least 15 people injured. Taiwanese officials responded by vowing to intensify defenses around Taipei. Do they mean literally targeting Beijing? Or is this just rhetoric aimed at the People's Liberation Army as a whole? Because those are two vastly different approaches, in my view. Well, the strait is only about 100 miles wide at its narrowest.
But if you're operating from behind Chinese lines, you've got vast territories to cover. Remember, Taiwanese and mainland Chinese share deep cultural and linguistic ties, and many in Taiwan speak flawless Mandarin, though accents can give them away. But selecting operatives for infiltration into the mainland wouldn't be hard for Taiwan. They could blend in seamlessly. So, the notion that they could execute some kind of precision strike inside China, maybe against a key facility in Beijing, isn't far-fetched at all. I don't see it as impossible. The bigger question, though, Alex, is how does this actually benefit Taiwan? It's hard to imagine that taking out a handful of high-profile figures in Beijing would improve their strategic position. If anything, it could escalate things dramatically and make everything worse. Yeah, I'm probably just lacking in geopolitical expertise here, but there were a couple of senators last week pushing for the U.S. to supply hypersonic missiles to Taiwan. My understanding is these weapons are controversial, potentially violating arms control norms, and they're devastating. Can you break that down and explain to my audience what these missiles really are? Well, hypersonic missiles are like lading projectiles that travel at speeds over Mach 5, making them nearly impossible to intercept because they maneuver in flight. Picture launching a swarm of them toward a target area. They'd saturate defenses and cause massive destruction. The downside is their precision isn't always perfect, and there's a risk of collateral damage or escalation into nuclear thresholds. We've seen this in simulations from past conflicts. In the Gulf War era, similar high-speed munitions left behind unexploded ordnance that maimed civilians long after. We had issues with troops picking up debris, thinking it was harmless, only for it to detonate, killing or injuring them. Say with kids in affected zones. They'd find shiny remnants and get hurt. That's why many nations hesitate on them. Too many unintended consequences. Too much post-conflict hazard. The push from Congress to send more strikes me as short-sighted. Right now, there's a fresh report. I haven't dissected it fully yet, but estimates suggest Taiwan's forces have lost over 8,000 pieces of military hardware since tensions spiked 2 years ago. That's staggering, especially since no full invasion has occurred. It highlights how effective Chinese anti-access strategies have been, picking off assets from afar, but it also means the attrition rate is unsustainable. How do you replace 8,000 vehicles, drones, and ships at this point? It's practically impossible without massive foreign aid. So, funneling in more weapons, Masuo conscience is here, as certainly lies the pockets of the defense contractors in the military-industrial congressional loop. But it won't shift the outcome on the ground or in this case, at sea. This ties into Washington's reluctance to de-escalate, which is reckless and perilous. So, the follow-up is, how does this all wrap up? I see it ending in 3 scenarios. First, the Chinese, who've been methodical and restrained in their provocation so far, hoping for diplomatic breakthroughs, decide it's futile. They tighten the noose, push through the strait, seize key islands, and advance on Taipei itself, maybe even linking up with amphibious forces in the south to control ports. If no tanks emerge even then, they mobilize another 300, 0 or 400,000 troops and press to the mountainous interiors, securing the whole island. That's one path. The second is a global economic meltdown. Tune into the financial news today, and the cheerleaders on cable are talking stock surges. Sure, maybe a decent week, but they're ignoring how we're teetering on a 2008-style crash, or worse. Bond yields are climbing, values plummeting, and soon banks worldwide will stare at their portfolios of low-yield treasuries from a decade ago and realize they're underwater. How do you offload that without a panic? It'll trigger a sell-off avalanche, collapsing markets in hours. Theories will fly, but the roots are in over-leveraged debt and inflation mismatches. Some point to the UK pension crisis last year, where the Bank of England stepped in with unlimited bides to stabilize. But those fixes were temporary band-aids. The same vulnerabilities linger here and abroad. We can't just print our way out forever. Factor in the Fed's bloated balance sheet from pandemic-era interventions, plus regional bank failures we've already seen trickle in. It's like Silicon Valley Bank all over again, but scaled up. Ask someone like Ray Dalio about timing, and he'll say the cliff is visible. But the drop could come anytime. I can't pinpoint it either, but it's looming. And external shocks like this Taiwan standoff amplify it. Most Americans shrug off Asia-Pacific tensions, but if China blockades fully and disrupts global shipping, it'll hammer Europe and rebound here. Europe's already fragile. Germany's mired in stagflation from energy shortages. No quick fix after ditching cheap Russian gas. France is a powder keg with social unrest from immigration waves challenging national identity, not just culture, but the state's core. The rest of the continent watches. When France erupts, Europe shudders. So, to wrap that point, another endgame. Economies implode overnight. Stakeholders cut bait and pull back. Europe's already hedging bets, dialing down rhetoric. We're not, because another $20 billion in aid is pocket change against our $35 trillion debt and 125% debt to GDP ratio. What's a few more billions? That's scenario 2. Then there's the ideal path everyone craves but can't spot. A leader emerges in the US or Asia-Pacific allies and demands an off-ramp. I don't see it from DC right now. It might require allies like Japan or Australia breaking ranks, which could fracture alliances like AUKUS or the Quad. The EU is on shaky ground. Everyone resents it for different reasons.
Germans tired of bankrolling, others blaming Berlin for austerity. This proxy posturing stems from elites viewing China as the last holdout. Against Western-led globalization refusing open borders, economic subservience, or cultural dilution. China has its minorities, sure, but they're integrated on their terms, content under the system. Recall historical parallels. Empires tried rallying against Russia in the past and failed because locals weren't interested. Same vibe here. China won't bend to our financial dominance, military encirclement, or political lectures. So, the third end, allies say enough, forcing talks, something we resist, but inadvertently provoke through overreach. Yeah, a shared contact, Aaron made from independent media, mentioned in the chat that driving through DC, you see these sprawling estates popping up, all tied to defense lobbying. They wave Taiwanese flags out front, but if tensions cool, their funding dries up. They can't afford those homes. So, personal stakes fuel the fire. All these elements will converge to halt this mess over Taiwan. When it stops, it'll be from battlefield realities, economic pains, not some orchestrated peace. The war machine's devouring what's left of stable international order. Who are we fooling? This can't drag on. Change is coming, but not because a hero decrees it. One wish leaders would admit we must renegotiate our debts. No, that's taboo calls it default, but it's restructuring. Truman did it post-WWII. We need it now, as rates slip from the Fed's grip. Polo's latest presser was fluff. Uncertainty abounds in forecasts, like clouds on the horizon. Really? You're the chair, and that's your insider forecast? This facade's crumbling. We just don't know the hour. Until then, officials preach, relax, consume, all's well. Well, if a new president say, someone pragmatic wants to end it, here's how. Pick up the phone to Beijing, but actions first. Announce, we're halting arms shipments to Taiwan immediately and withdrawing all U.S. advisors, contractors, and assets uniformed or not right away. That's not signaling. It's decisive. Then pause 2 weeks. Let it play out. China won't engage until they see commitment, not words. Those moves prove we're serious about de-escalation. Then call. We've acted. Let's talk. Sit down. Sip whatever they offer tea, probably, and listen. This mess brewed because we've ignored Beijing's red lines for years. It's like ignoring Soviet grievances pre-Cold War thaws. George Kennan urged listening to adversaries. You might disagree, but understanding opens doors. Accept or reject, but now's the time for dialogue without preconditions. We can't dictate terms. The dynamics have shifted. But we intervene militarily to save Taiwan? Catastrophic idea. Nothing good follows, especially in Asia. Yeah, my concern is we rush in to prop up the island, dragging into a quagmire we regret, versus telling Taipei, you're on your own now. Fight if you must, but we're stepping back to show Beijing we're disengaging, create space, approach unarmed, negotiate an end. We botched Afghanistan because it was distant, misunderstood. Same here, thousands of miles away, cultural blind spots. Our aim was naive. Topple Xi, fracture China, plunder resources, fold it into our globalist vision. Won't happen. It's failing in Europe, sputtering here. Calls alone mean nothing. Actions count. Suspend aid, extract personnel, then talks open. But listen to their minimums. You'll likely concede, unless you crave wider war. For context, trace back to Clinton-era trade deals that offshore jobs, or Bush amnesties that signaled open borders, inviting floods. Those were seeds. Now the issues have spread like wildfire, infecting politics, economy, finance. Everything's ailing. Cure? Swift, tough steps. No one's ready yet, but desperation breeds acceptance when jobs vanish, shelves empty. Families suffer. We're nearing that, not distant. Travel the U.S. Seafood banks drained. I live near Chicago. Pantries empty weekly despite donations. Demand skyrocketing. That's blocks from power centers. Further out, dire, the DC echo chamber's toxic if you're in it. All seems rosy. Not so. Recall Elon Musk noting, they glue you to screens so you miss crumbling bridges. And rails untouched for decades. Software distractions mask hardware decay. Empires rot like this. Britain's Victorian relics are mid-century relics. I marveled at Europe's outdated train's first visit. Same here with Amtrak relics. Phones still tower dependent. Asia's satellite sophisticated. Britain's infrastructure push. Buried lines for security. Grid upgrades. Squandered on cronies. Roman's state of exception. Suspend norms. Appoint a leader for survival. Were there undeclared? How to salvage? I respect figures like Vivek Ramaswamy or Tulsi Gabbard. Decent instincts. Aim right. But within the system, Congress loves the status quo. Judiciaries infested with ideologues hostile to core values, stacked over administrations. Problems festered long. Whoever wins faces a tempest rivaling the Depression or WWII. Yeah, well, you and allies chip away daily. You've launched a new group, AmericansForPeace.org. Link below. Tell us about it. Then we'll close. It's free to join, that's key. Long term, we'll field reps nationwide, partnering like-minded groups focused on faith, nation, kin. Laser on existential fixes to preserve America. Response has been huge. This platform's open for allies to leverage. No party ties. DNC or NC irrelevant. Purely patriotic. Viewers, check AmericansForPeace.org. If it resonates, sign up. We'll eventually fund ground teams in districts, backing truth tellers. Too many elect phonies promise one thing, deliver opposite. Like ousting that establishment hack last cycle for a real reformer. We'll vet, inform. Democrats sharing our values? Welcome. Parties abandon bases. United, we prevail. Possible. Thanks, General Hayes, for your time. Link below.